Alrighty. And I'd have no idea where to even start. Because you know what? Every week is like a freaking a month, year, whatever.
Oh, I know. And
what did we talk about last week?
It was that all I have written down is redefining the role of mother, maturing, removing the veils. So it was that final.
Oh, right. Actually, well, not just mother, but all roles, period.
Right.
Well, it's funny because the latter part of the week, a whole bunch of stuff on the masculine came up.
Well, and that's, that probably was precipitated because it is just a role.
Yes. Well,
I saw so much of the resistance to releasing that masculine. And
well, I think it's releasing the anger and resentment to it more than anything, because that's what seems to have come up a lot last week.
Yeah, I don't know if it's just because of my background, but it's like I saw so much having to do with the story associated with like the Garden of Eden. Mm-hmm. And how that was the setup or the guise of women taking that subservient role.
Well, and from how I've seen it, one of the unwritten books,
right,
is that understanding that this planet, this like set of dimensions was based on that creation through separation, right? Which became the masculine energy, right? Yeah. So that has been the foundation of the entire, it was done purposely, right? So
right.
The things that we consider were really stressful or limiting or whatever were done on purpose because it was part of that level of separation that we wanted to create. And so, of course, and so but yet there's still the energy of creation through unity that exists within here because that's what helped to create the other. So that's been the friction, right? So that's what we call the masculine and feminine today. And so, and we've talked about this a long time ago, but this is such an important, because I was looking at that at the latter part of last week because I not really looked at it for a while, but the resentment, it's almost like there's this really deep, deep core resentment of that masculine energy of the feminine, right? The separation-based energy resenting the unity-based creation energy, the separation-based creation energy versus the unity-based creation energy, because it sort of like feels like it's got to prove itself,
right.
It's come later in the game and blah, blah, blah. Instead of saying, well, I know I'm part of this, it's just it's sort of like, I think of a large company and it's just a division.
Right.
It's not better or worse. It's just part of the division as was chosen. But there's been that friction and from that is that belief, well, then I have to prove to you how much more powerful I am. I have to prove to you that, you have to be subservient to me because this is my plane of existence kind of thing.
Right. It's almost like there's the belief that it's one or the other. It can't be both.
And we just got that ding, so obviously.
Yeah, obviously.
So yeah, that was a big one. And it's so deep and so embedded, and of course we have it personified as men and women now.
Right.
But back when androgyny was was more key, it was more the energy. So yeah, it's like, where do you even start with that? Because as much as we are in that place of where, you know, it's time to, the understanding is that it's time to resolve and complete it, right? Also, what you and I had interchange on over the weekend or Friday or whatever is that there are some who are still addicted to the story of the resentment.
Well, it's so based in revenge, or, you know, if the pendulum's all the way this way, in order for it to come back to the middle, it has to go all the way to this direction. So it's like a punishment or a I guess revenge is the best thing.
Well, and it's an identifier, because if someone holds that deeply in their being as part of their identity, right, that they're going to be the ones to overcome that energy, or they're going to, you know, or they're, you know, their path is to overcome that energy, whatever, then that's how the ego perceives it as, well, I need to squash it out.
Right. Right.
And I need to make it an epic journey and a big story so that everybody knows that I squashed it out.
And it gets a lot of attention.
Right. That's all ego. Right.
So, you know, the volatility and the drama.
Right. So, you know, and the other thing that so many forget is there's nothing, so vilifying anything is still separation-based ego, energies, and emotions.
Right. Even if it's something as big as the darkness.
Well, right. And so actually the masculine energy in many cases is being represented as the darkness for many people. And it's like, but so when that's reflected back to us in our realities over and over again, what's the message? Well, then it's time for us to resolve and complete that and forgive it and accept it and love it within ourselves. No matter what our embodiment is, whether we're a woman or a man, it makes no difference. I mean, there are plenty of men out there who hate their masculine energy. You know, it's
right.
And there are plenty of women who hold the masculine energy and hate their feminine energy. It's sort of like an internal struggle. So, yeah, that's a biggie. That hit me upside the head in a way that I didn't even expect at the end of the last week. So,
yeah.
Apparently that's going to be a theme carrying through this year.
Yeah. I mean, I've struggled with it, and I've come to such a different place with it. Not even knowing, not even having a subject to put on it.
Yeah.
It's just that struggle and the changing of the roles and the becoming different people, while still maintaining a relationship and allowing it to evolve and change along with the evolving roles.
Yeah. Or the letting go of the roles, right?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So much, and there's so much, it's like, there's like not even enough words that I could even explain the understandings that have been coming in. So we just hold this whole discussion in that energy of understanding. Right. It's so much. It's another one of those things, you know, that we've been talking about, the ego holding on to as precious. We do hold that onto. We do hold that whole battle. And we say good and evil. We say men versus women, you know, Mars versus Venus.
Oh yeah, Venus.
You know, that whole thing. And it's like I have stopped, you know, like, it's so often where, you know, I hear women say things like, oh, you know, he's just a man. And I'm like, yeah, but that's just as bad as somebody saying, well, you're just a woman.
Right.
You don't understand that. You're just a woman. Well, okay, but that's just as bad when we say, well, you don't understand that. You're just a man. It's like, no, nobody's just one of anything. We're both. It's a matter of what we're allowed to express. Oh, so there's so much culturally for us to unravel. You know, we went through the whole period of the divine feminine, you know,
right,
back into its power, but it's not to do it like, so to beat down the man and the masculine. It's to allow the masculine to remember its divine part in the whole. And that we all have that in
stories.
What?
I'm seeing so many stories play out.
Oh, I know.
I mean, it's that fit this whether it's Egypt or Greece, Rome, with the gods, and it's just, there's then all the individual stories.
Oh, billions and trillions and quadrillions and
Right.
infinite.
Right.
Yeah, and yet they're so personal and they feel so big, right? So, the experience I had at the end of the week was facing a life that I thought I had cleared out, and that came up, and it was such a huge, seriously, physically painful experience. And I was like, what? But I was able to observe that whole thing. And, when I really, so after I was able to resolve and complete all of that, so that all that pain came out of myself, over the weekend, I was able to take moments of, oh, excuse me, there's a yawn, of looking at it and going deeper into it, because beyond that emotion, because, we put up a wall when we have a lot of deep emotion about something, right? So when there's a lot of pain or anger or whatever, then you don't see beyond that pain or anger or whatever, and you never see the bigger picture. And that's what my guidance was okay, so you've not been able to see the bigger picture of what happened there, because you've held this wall of pain and resentment and anger and all that kind of stuff. So when I looked at it, it was like, wow, I realized I was angry at the earth for allowing me to bleed out, as I died at that, in that really, really, let's just say, really challenging way.
Right. Yeah.
And how dare the earth drink my blood, on something like that, because she's supposed to be our nurturer, she's
right.
And there was so much about I came in that life to, embody the divine feminine, and I felt betrayed. I felt like, it was a losing battle, and I was just totally blindsided.
Unsupported.
What was that? Unsupported to the umpteenth degree by the universe, by the earth, by everyone around me, by those I loved. And I was like, wow, look at how big that is, and look at how collective that is, right? Yeah, there's the big yawn.
Oh, boy.
Because wow, okay, but we came in, even if we hold that seed of remembrance for that, whatever, because we've done that periodically all throughout the development and the evolution of this planet, no matter what iterations we've done, we've come to places where, we've brought that seed of remembrance and of the creation through unity, right? That remembrance of that power, that it actually encompasses all of it. And yet, sometimes when we've done that, we have forgotten that when we incarnate here, we have traditionally followed the rules to follow the rules that we, all agreed on.
Right.
To allow that to perpetuate, to finish the lessons, to finish the experience. And that's the whole picture of the entire Earth's experience. So, wow, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
It really does. It really does. And I thought, okay, so we've put that to rest, but it's the more we talk about it, it's just we've chiseled away at it.
Yes. We're just making progress. Things are starting to, fall away.
Right.
So,
right. Which then create little shifts as it falls away, because other things become uncovered and evident as it falls away.
Right. And part of I think what came to me over meditation over the weekend was part of our evolution at this point, because we said we want to do it differently. Part of that evolution is not to vilify any part of it, but to embrace it all as part of the whole, and equally, viable and magnificent and whatever, without impeding on each other. And that's a very challenging balance for us to, that we have traditionally been able to hold, because we haven't been able to do that in the past, is my understanding. So because it's the challenge is there. I mean, when that all came up for me last week, I mean, God, it was such a very, very primal anger and,
Right.
you know, and feeling of not, you know, being unsupported and all that kind of stuff. And that's really deeply held for many of us, that part of us. We have, all of us have feminine and masculine within us, so that we can remember that it's all balanced within, which is another level of that completion, you know, that the recognition of completion. And there's just like no words to just describe. That is such a core part of us to resolve and complete and come to a place of love and acceptance and embracing on.
Right.
But so many things. Like, I just can't even think of any like conflict we have that doesn't incorporate that to some level.
No, I'd agree. I'd agree.
So this just keeps on rolling down the hill like a big old snowball.
Right. And it's that, I don't know. It's almost like that. Oh, I can't even come up with the term right now, but once you hit that 51%, and it's just like bam, wildfire. There is no stopping that resolution.
And look at all the wildfires we've had, and look at the volcanoes that are erupting. Look at all
right. Especially in places where you think, well, this is the peaceful area.
Right.
You know, the energy is so much more evolved, if you will.
Yeah. So we have a lot of physical manifestation to support that many aren't connecting those dots yet, you know.
Right.
Because, you know, this whole, whether, you know, Earth, Gaia, whatever, is all we're all part of that interrelated consciousness in this physicality that was created to play that out. And now, of course, we know we can change the rules.
Right.
You know, we can change the rules as long as, well, and I get this sort of like, as long as, you know, we set it up so that it doesn't interfere with that final, you know,
right,
completion of the stuff. Because we wouldn't want to perpetuate that anymore, because we're done, right? We don't want to do this again and again. We've done it again and again and again.
Right.
So part of that completion, I feel like, has to do just with this. Hitting that. I know you've gone through that yourself in your personal life, and, you know, and it's been reflected back to you in that in your relationships and all that kind of stuff. And
right.
everybody's got it their own specific way. And a lot of it's really screaming out for resolution right now.
Right. Yeah, and if you think about it, it's the each person's own struggle, or how they've created this energy. When you bring it all together, that's what makes the picture. Mm-hmm. And that's what makes the rich tones and everything else. And that in and of itself is beautiful.
Well, it's like the most amazing tapestry ever, right?
Right.
Yeah, there's so much about this. It's really challenging to even, I mean, it's almost like we can see it, like, you know, about this big, but we know it's like this big, you know?
Right. Well, it's like when you, I don't know, both my parents had vision problems, and so we'd go to the eye doctor, and they would be struggling, and the eye doctor would put this lens over their eyes that was just tiny little holes, very, instead of the whole thing, and they could see better. And it's almost like that's how we've chosen to do this, is one of those little pinholes at a time, because it's just too overwhelming.
Well, to the mind, right? Because the mind.
Right.
And as we become more conscious and in more remembrance, and we allow ourselves to bypass the mind, then it becomes easier for us to see the bigger picture. Because sometimes I know I can see a lot more than I used to, and yet I don't have words to explain it because that's the mind trying to put that in a box, right?
Right. Right.
So, yeah. Yeah, sometimes it does make it easier. Well, and it's easier for many to relate when it's a personal experience versus when it's a collective one, right?
Yeah, and I mean we're just so smart that that's how we designed it all.
Yeah. And yet it's completely the same thing, just different presentation, different manifestations.
Right.
So whether it's personal, whether it's a group, whether it's a family or a community or, like a country or a whole geography, right? Or the whole earth, it's all the same.
Right.
And what many have not yet remembered is how to connect those dots to see that translation, which is, what this is about, that we do every week. It, had turned into it years ago when we started doing this, like, oh yeah, look at that. That's like going on with everybody.
Right. Right.
That's going on across the world. And not just the world, but also the universe, because there's all interrelations and other different parts of the multiverse. And this is all one big, project. But again, those of us who had chosen to be part of the project managers for Earth, it's like, nope, we'll look through this little hole.
Right, right, yeah. Stay focused.
With a series of all these other littler holes to get the job done. Yeah, we totally broke it up into biteable pieces. Yeah, because we wanted to create that biteable piece kind of perception anyway. Oh, so much. It's like I can't even say anything before another whole like dump comes in now. Like
I know.
Like, oh, okay, I just like got a whole other big piece. I'm just gonna let that sit. So, yeah. So let's see. We have. So here's the personal thing that came up. So we, I thought we had everything. I thought we had everything all like smoothly going here. Now we have a leak out of our shower from the upstairs.
Oh, you did mention that. I guess it's just not been resolving.
Well, Scott thought he got it. Apparently he didn't. So apparently it wasn't what he thought it was that was leaking. And it's like just the most inconvenient place to, if we end up having, so he's going to try a couple other things. We think it could be the access pipes, like that actually run the shower.
Right.
The drain pipe. Because when
you said that, that's what I saw.
Yeah.
Was the supply line.
Which is a lot easier to fix than the drain. So we're hoping that's what's going to be. Okay.
You froze up there for a second.
No, I said it's the easier thing to fix.
Right. Oh, I would say so.
So than the drain, because then you have to cut the freaking hole in the ceiling and try to find it. Which I'm just creating differently to say it's just the supply pipes, and we'll be able to fix that pretty easily. Bing,
yeah.
Bing bang boom. But those kind of things when they pop up, I'm like, okay, so where is that connected now?
Right.
So, yeah, that's about it though. Actually, everything else has been just so big, and there's like a lot going on, and it's just so big and every day. And I think we did on this pretty easily today.
Yeah, I know.
Of course, besides me feeling like I was going to die on Friday.
Yeah, well, that's just a detail.
That was just a detail.
that was get your attention.
It was only brief for a little while, like an hour, less than.
Yeah.
Well, and the funny part is, not the end. Like I wasn't having any body pain or anything, but after that, it's like I feel like better at the good to this different level altogether, and it's like,
oh yeah,
and I didn't even know. It's like the things you're not even conscious of, right? It's like, oh my gosh, I feel so much, more energized and lighter, and every time we come across those things. All right, well, I guess that's what we're gonna do is just go out there and whatever we need to do so that we can, how about that we can see, let's see, so that we allow ourselves to complete and resolve all of that. Leftover anger and resentment and abandonment, issues, unsupported issues between what we call the masculine and feminine energies within ourselves and our experiences within the entire, macrocosm of the earth and beyond that.
It makes sense that this conflict, the perceived conflict, created these lower vibration energies.
Mm-hmm.
And they seem to be the core energies that keep us anchored here.
Right. And that was the goal. That's the thing that we forget, is that was the goal. So that's why we created this. People ask, why did we create all this crap? Why did we create the pain and the suffering and da-da-da? And it's like, well, because we wanted to. We wanted to.
Right.
Like, there is actually a purpose in the bigger picture of like what, it's almost like, because I've seen for a while that it all boils down to like this one key that has actually something to do with other parts in the multiverse that they're sort of all waiting on, which is why everybody's, there are so many from other star systems and dimensions and whatever that are anxious for us to be done. And it's like, hey, you go manage your own project, your own part of the project. We have got this.
Yeah.
We got this. If we didn't have it, we wouldn't be here to do it. So interesting. But I am going to see if I get my thing going so we can stop for a second so I go to the bathroom before we start. Okay. All right. So whatever that is so that we can do that.
Whatever that is.
With flow and ease.
Right.
And fun and joy. Yeah. And I mentioned that was a really painful experience, but that was really, honestly, pretty easy to get through when it finally got puked up. As much as it felt horrific and just huge, it was like, oh my God, like looking at it and then be able to step back and go, okay, I can watch this even though I can feel the physical pain of it, like going,
right.
I'm just going to be in divine consciousness as divine consciousness and allow that to flow through. And when that left, that was probably, I can't tell you the amount of, there's just so much that just passed right through.
Right.
And say, well, I did that in less than an hour of meditation. I was like, even though I've held on to it for, lifetimes and lifetimes and lifetimes.
Right.
So that was really nice. So all that ease and flow and observance, the ability to stay in observance and love for the whole shebang. Forgiveness, acceptance, embracing, all that kind of stuff. In all directions. Not just the feminine, masculine, feminine as well.
Right, right.
All right, let's go.
Could have just stayed there.
That was like bigger than a bread box.
Yeah.
Yeah, that felt, again, amazing in such a different way. That was,
Yeah.
so many layers. It was almost like in the beginning, I started at the pinhole, and just sat there and waited. And it was very just this patient flow of opening.
Right.
And it was like, oh, yeah. And this too. And this too. And this too. And then somewhere in there came the creations that are made from those two energies, the child, so to speak, right?
Right.
And I was like, oh, look, we went back to the Trinity thing. It was like, yeah, make sure that's included too. And that's all like, yeah, it was. And then it was just like this beautiful starburst. And I saw all these things that were a part of it. And then I was just out. That was really nice. I could feel that all through the heart and the throat.
Oh,
the
yeah.
solar plexus. And yeah.
And
And
one point,
no, go ahead.
at one point, I would see how that vibration, it was, it was like started, say, for instance, with me, and I could see how it would expand, but then it was like, I would hear the birds, and the birds had the same vibration. And then, literally the rocks and the trees and every animal and every, the dirt. And it was like the whole, it was like the, they talk about epidemics and how they start, and it was just the spreading. It was like an epidemic of that vibration. And it was just like,
Yeah.
I felt so seamless.
Yes. Yeah. Because at one point I felt, so it's funny, I felt, for lack of a better word, nothingness.
Right.
It really was
Correct.
just like that wholeness. And I even heard, I'm like, this is that feeling of freeness without that friction and resistance. Right. And it was like,
Right. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, as always, we'll just see how this one sort of comes this week. Together this week.
Yeah.
Wow.
This one may unfold for a while.
Yeah, we might have like different levels of this for a while. Yeah, I would agree. And it's funny, as I say this and I look behind me and I see a couple of the weapons from my kung fu class. I'm like, oh, that's my gentle nature.
Yep.
Oh, that's funny. Oh, all right. Well, everybody, thank you for joining, and enjoy that and sit in it all week. And
no kidding.
Would love to hear back from people on how it's, going with them. So have a good one. We'll see you next time. Let's see if I can get my cursor to work. I can do the little hitting the button. Yep. All right. We'll see y'all next time.